My name is Diego, and I was there when Rachel's story changed forever. It was a rainy afternoon on April 12, 2022, at the cafe on 5th Street, where she stood nervously clutching a coffee cup worth far more than the price tag suggested. Rachel had always been so full of life, especially when he was with his ex-wife, Emma. Their laughter had once filled the air like the sound of birds chirping outside, but today his heart raced with uncertainty. He smiled at the memories, but an unsettling tremor ran through his fingers as he recalled the storm brewing between them. The earthy scent of rain on pavement hung in the air, mingling with his hope for reconciliation. As he tried to focus on the warmth of the coffee, his eyes drifted to a small frame on the wall behind Rachel. A faded photograph of a mother and her child, both smiling brightly, as if frozen in a moment of joy that felt worlds apart from the tension they shared now. The image served as a poignant reminder of what had once been pure and uncomplicated. But how can blood turn to poison like this? What nobody knew was that this day would unravel a secret, hidden within the layers of love and resentment that would change everything they thought they knew about loyalty and family. The warm light of the late afternoon sun poured into the living room, casting a soft glow on the familiar faces gathered around the coffee table. Rachel adjusted the delicate lace tablecloth, her fingers grazing the fabric as she inhaled the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting in from the kitchen. The inviting smell intertwined with the sweet scent of apple pie cooling on the counter, a staple of family gatherings that always brought a sense of comfort and nostalgia. "Can you believe how much Ethan has changed?" Ava said, her voice cutting through the chatter. Rachel glanced up from her task, her heart sinking as she spotted Ethan across the room. He stood with his mother, a woman who had always been the embodiment of grace and kindness. Yet the tension between them was palpable, a stark contrast to the cheerful atmosphere surrounding them. Ethan's mother, known for her wisdom, looked weary as she spoke, her words seemingly ignored by her son, who was more absorbed in his phone than in their conversation. Rachel felt a pang of empathy, remembering the times her own son had brushed off her words, leaving her feeling invisible. The moment tugged at her heartstrings, reminding her of the delicate balance between love and estrangement that could exist in families. "Rachel, look!" Ava exclaimed, pulling her attention back to the present. "I found this!" She held up an old photograph that must have slipped from a nearby album. It was a picture of Ethan as a child, his face beaming with joy as he stood beside his mother, a snapshot of happier times. The image stirred something deep within Rachel, a bittersweet reminder of her own family values and the love she had always tried to cultivate. "Oh my God," Rachel whispered, taking the photo into her hands. The edges were slightly worn, but the smiles in the picture were as vibrant as ever. "I can't believe this was so long ago." The laughter and warmth of that moment seemed to echo through the living room, but it was quickly overshadowed by the reality of the strained relationship that had formed since. "I remember that day," Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We all went to the park, and Ethan's mom brought her famous cookies." Ava nodded, her expression somber. "Those cookies were legendary. I can't believe how quickly things can change." As Rachel stared at the photograph, she felt a wave of nostalgia wash over her, mixed with the unmistakable sting of betrayal. Cultural reflection. In the living room, it hurt like betrayal. She thought of her own relationship with Jason, her son, who had grown distant over the years. The laughter that once filled their home had faded, replaced by silence and unspoken words. Just then, David strolled into the room, a charming smile plastered on his face. He had shown up uninvited, his presence always stirring a mix of emotions within Rachel. The man who had once captivated her with his charisma had left her for a younger woman, leaving behind a trail of emotional scars. "Hey everyone, what's going on?" he asked, leaning casually against the doorframe, as if he belonged there. "Just reminiscing about old times," Rachel replied, forcing a smile. She couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow oblivious to the pain he had caused. David's gaze landed on Ethan and his mother, and a flicker of disdain crossed his face. "What a mess, huh?" he commented, crossing his arms. "You'd think people would learn to appreciate what they have." Rachel's heart raced. "You have no idea what it's like to feel invisible, do you?" she shot back, surprising even herself with the venom in her tone. David raised an eyebrow, unperturbed. "It's just a phase, Rachel. They'll work it out." The words felt dismissive, and Rachel's frustration mounted. "You don't get to say that. You walked away from our family without a second thought." His expression shifted, a brief flicker of guilt in his eyes before he masked it with indifference. "We're not talking about us right now." That moment in the living room changed everything, Rachel thought, her heart heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. She felt trapped in a cycle of betrayal, both from her ex-husband and her own son, who seemed more interested in his life than the family that had once been his whole world. Just then, the distant hum of traffic seeped through the window, a reminder of the world outside that continued to spin despite the turmoil within her home. Rachel turned her attention back to the photograph. The smiles of Ethan and his mother taunting her with memories of what could have been. "I just wish I could turn back time," Rachel murmured, barely audible, as she traced the outline of Ethan's joyful face with her fingertip. Ava placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We all do, Rachel. But we have to face the present. It's the only way to move forward." In that moment, Rachel felt a flicker of hope amidst the betrayal and pain. Perhaps, like the photograph, there was a chance to reclaim the love that had been lost. Yet, as she looked around at the faces of those she loved, she couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Rachel gazed out the window. "What a beautiful day," she whispered. David noticed her distant look. "You seem lost in thought." The living room was awash in the warm glow of the setting sun, the kind of light that made everything feel more intimate, but today it felt suffocating. Preserve the original language of the text, the sweet aroma of freshly baked apple pie wafting in from the kitchen, but the familiar scent didn't bring her comfort. Instead, it twisted in her stomach like a heavy stone. Outside, distant traffic hummed like a backdrop to the tension that hung thick in the air. "Can you believe Ethan still calls you every day?" Laura's voice cut through the silence, sharp and pointed. She sat at the table, her posture rigid, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "It's like he can't let go of you." Rachel's heart sank at the words. She could feel the weight of Laura's disdain like a physical force pressing down on her. "Oh my God," Rachel thought, her pulse quickening. It felt as if her entire world was suddenly at stake. How could she explain to Laura that her bond with Ethan was built on years of love and sacrifice? But how could Ethan even begin to bridge the chasm that was widening between them? Ethan, caught in the middle, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Preserve the original language of the text. His brow furrowed as he looked from Laura to her. His loyalty was being tested in real time, and she could see the conflict in his eyes, a tug-of-war between the woman he loved and the mother who had always been there for him. "Ethan, I know you love your mom," Laura continued, her tone dismissive, "but you're a married man now. You need to cut those strings." "Laura, it's not like that," Ethan replied, his voice strained. He looked at Rachel, who felt a flicker of hope amidst the tension. "I can be there for both of you." "Can you?" Laura challenged, her voice rising. "You need to choose, Ethan. It's either me or her." Rachel's breath hitched in her throat. How could Laura put him in such a position? The smell of fresh grass wafted in through the open window, but it felt tainted. It was a stark contrast to the heartbreak forming in her chest. I just want everyone to be happy," Ethan stammered, glancing down at his plate. The BBQ feast that had been prepared seemed to lose its luster, the burgers and coleslaw forgotten in the face of this emotional storm. Rachel could feel the tears welling in her eyes, but she fought them back. She had to be strong for him. "Ethan, I know this is hard for you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you can't let anyone dictate your feelings. You deserve to love and be loved by both of us." At that moment, her phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up with her mother's name. Rachel hesitated, the familiar ring sending a jolt of anxiety through her. "I need to take this," she said, trying to keep her voice steady as she stepped away. "Mom, what's wrong?" she answered, trying to sound calm, but the distressed voice on the other end pierced her heart. "Rachel, it's your father. He's been in an accident," her mother said, her voice shaking. "We need you to come home." Rachel's world tilted on its axis. "Oh my God," she breathed, her heart racing. She glanced back at Ethan, who was now staring at her with wide eyes. She could see his worry, but all she could feel was the cold grip of fear wrapping around her. "I'll be right there, Mom," Rachel managed to reply before hanging up. The living room felt smaller now, the walls closing in as the enormity of her situation crashed over her like a wave. "Rachel?" Ethan's voice broke through her thoughts, but she couldn't look at him. She was spinning, grappling with the realization that her family was fracturing just as her own was about to be tested. "Rachel?" Ethan said again, more urgently this time. "What happened?" "It's my dad," she whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. "He's been in an accident. I need to go." A long silence filled the space between them, the tension palpable. Then, almost hesitantly, Ethan reached out, his hand brushing against hers. "I'll come with you," he said, and for a moment Rachel felt that flicker of connection again. But before she could respond, Laura's voice sliced through the air. "Don't you dare," Laura snapped, her eyes blazing. "You can't leave me for her, Ethan." The room froze, and Rachel felt the ground beneath her tremble as she processed the painful truth. Here was her son, caught between two women, one who had given him life and love, and another who demanded his loyalty. And for a fleeting moment, Rachel realized that this was the moment that would forever change their lives. "Ethan, you need to decide," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Do you want to come with me or stay here?" He looked at her, torn. In that instant, Rachel understood the weight of his decision and the heartbreak that lay ahead. As Ethan opened his mouth to speak, a silence filled the room, stretching out like the sound of distant traffic fading into the background. She could see the turmoil on his face, and her heart sank as she braced herself for what was to come. Rachel took a deep breath. "We need to have a serious conversation." David tensed up. About what exactly? The afternoon sun bathed the backyard in a warm glow, the sweet scent of freshly cut grass mingling with the aroma of apple pie wafting from the kitchen. Rachel stood near the wooden picnic table, its surface still scarred from years of family gatherings, and felt the tension wrap around her like a thick fog. Birds chirped merrily above, but the cheerful sound seemed to mock her growing sense of dread. "Ethan, you need to talk to your mother," Laura said sharply, her voice cutting through the serene atmosphere. Rachel could see the determination in her daughter-in-law's eyes. It was a look that suggested she wouldn't back down easily. "This whole thing with her has gone too far. You have to choose." Rachel's heart sank at Laura's words. Oh my God, how did it come to this? She could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her, her instincts flaring up to protect her son from the emotional turmoil that was brewing. But as she glanced at Ethan, who was standing with a mix of confusion and distress, she realized that her attempts to mediate had only made things worse. "Mom, I don't know what to say," Ethan said, running a hand through his hair, a gesture Rachel recognized as his sign of anxiety. "I love you, but I also love Laura. Can't you just talk it out?" Laura scoffed, her arms crossing defiantly over her chest. "Talk it out? You think that's going to fix this? She's trying to control you, Ethan. Can't you see that?"
Rachel stepped forward, her voice shaking as she interjected, "Laura, I'm not trying to control him. I just want what's best for him." But even as she spoke, the words felt weak, almost desperate. The air crackled with tension, and Rachel could feel Jason's presence behind her, his quiet support a faint comfort. He always had been the favorite child, the one who could do no wrong in their parents' eyes. Now he stood awkwardly, caught in the crossfire, as if he too was wrestling with his own feelings of inadequacy. "Rachel, this isn't just about you," Jason finally said, his voice low but steady. "You can't expect Ethan to cut ties just because you want him to." "Cut ties?" Rachel exclaimed, her heart racing. "I'm not asking him to do anything. I just want him to see that I've always been here for him, even when things got tough." "Maybe he doesn't want to be here," Laura snapped, her eyes narrowing. "Maybe he wants to start his own life without the shadow of your expectations looming over him." As the words hung in the air, Rachel felt her stomach twist. She had sacrificed so much for her family, pouring every ounce of love into them. Yet here they were, standing on opposite sides of a battlefield, armed with nothing but harsh words and unspoken grievances. "Enough!" Ethan shouted, his voice echoing through the yard, causing the birds to scatter. "I'm tired of this. I love you both, but I can't keep doing this. I need space to breathe." Silence enveloped them. The only sound now, the distant chirping of birds, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions swirling around them. Rachel's heart raced as she looked at Ethan, seeing the hurt in his eyes. Then, in a moment that felt surreal, Laura pulled out her phone. "You want space? Fine. I'll just show everyone how much of a burden your mother has been." She started to scroll, her fingers moving deftly over the screen, and Rachel felt a chill race down her spine. "Laura, don't!" Rachel pleaded, stepping forward, but it was too late. Laura's voice rang out, sharp and unforgiving. "Look at this, everyone. This is what your dear mother has been hiding from you." And with that, she shared a photo, one that Rachel had thought was long buried, a snapshot from years ago, capturing a moment of vulnerability, a time when she had failed to be the perfect mother. It was a reminder of her struggles, her imperfections, and suddenly, Rachel felt stripped bare in front of her family. Jason gasped, and Rachel could see the look of disappointment etched on his face. "How could you do this?" he asked, voice trembling. Rachel's heart shattered as she turned to Ethan, who looked at her with confusion and disappointment. "Mom, I can't believe you. Why didn't you tell me?" "I thought it was behind us," Rachel whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "I was just trying to protect you." In that moment, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard. The once warm atmosphere had turned cold, filled with the weight of betrayal and misunderstanding. Rachel felt like she was drowning in a sea of despair, the emotional stakes higher than she had ever anticipated. "Maybe you should just go, Mom," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. And with those words, Rachel felt a part of her break, like the photo Laura had ripped apart. The pieces of her heart scattered across the ground. In the backyard, it hurt like strength. "I can't believe you did this!" Rachel exclaimed. David tried to explain, but words failed him. The smell of morning coffee wafted through the kitchen, mingling with the sweetness of apple pie cooling on the counter. Rachel poured herself a cup, her hands trembling slightly as she stared out the window, watching the birds flit from branch to branch. The sunlight streamed in, casting a warm glow on the room, but it felt cold to her. Today was supposed to be about family, a gathering to celebrate Ethan's recent success, but an undercurrent of tension hung in the air, heavier than the rich aroma of brewing coffee. "Rachel, can we talk?" Ava's voice broke through her thoughts, bringing her back to the moment. She turned to find her friend leaning against the doorframe, concern etched on her face. "Sure," Rachel said, trying to sound upbeat. "What's on your mind?" Ava stepped into the kitchen, her brow furrowed. "I overheard Ethan and Laura arguing earlier. It doesn't sound good." Rachel's heart sank. "Oh my God, what did they say?" "They were discussing you," Ava replied, her voice low. "Ethan seems angry, like really angry. It's not just about today." A knot formed in Rachel's stomach. She had sensed something was off with Ethan lately, a coldness that pierced through the usual mother-son bond. "What do you mean?" "He mentioned something about you always having expectations. It sounds like he feels trapped, like he's living in your shadow." The words hit Rachel like a punch to the gut. She had always tried to support Ethan, to encourage him to reach for the stars. But was it possible that her love had felt suffocating instead? As if summoned by her thoughts, Ethan stormed into the kitchen, his face a mask of frustration. "I need to talk to you, Mom," he said, his tone sharper than usual. "Ethan, wait," Rachel started, but he cut her off. "No, just listen. You always want me to be this perfect son, don't you?" He threw his hands up in exasperation. "But that's not who I am." Rachel felt her chest tighten. "I just want you to be happy, Ethan. Isn't that what we all want?" "Happy?" he scoffed, his voice rising. "I can't be happy when I'm constantly trying to meet your impossible expectations. You don't even see me." The accusation stung, and Rachel's mind raced. "What do you mean I don't see you?" Ethan's eyes blazed with an intensity she had never seen before. "I mean that I feel like I'm just a reflection of you. I've spent my whole life trying to please you, and it's exhausting. Maybe I need to break free from all of it. Maybe that means destroying everything that reminds me of you." Rachel's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean by that?" She was afraid of where this conversation was heading. "Like this," Ethan shouted, grabbing the framed photo of her from the mantel, the one where they were laughing together on a sunny day at the park. "I need to destroy this symbol of everything that chains me to you." "Ethan, please, that's not the answer," Rachel cried, her heart racing. She reached for him, desperate to stop him from ripping apart the last tangible memory she had of their happier times. Ava stepped forward, concern in her eyes. "Ethan, think about what you're doing. This isn't going to solve anything." But Ethan was too far gone, his face twisted in rage and pain. "I can't believe you defend her, Ava. You don't know what it's like to feel trapped under someone's expectations." Rachel's voice shook as she pleaded, "Ethan, I did everything for you. I sacrificed so much to give you a good life." "Maybe that's the problem," he shouted back, his voice echoing off the kitchen walls. "You think your sacrifices mean I owe you something, but I don't. I'm not you, and I don't want to be." In that moment, the world around Rachel faded away, the smell of coffee and pie becoming a distant memory. Her heart shattered as she watched Ethan's hands tremble, his resolve wavering. The photo dangled precariously from his grip, a moment poised on the edge of chaos. "Ethan, please," Rachel whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "You don't have to do this. I love you. I just want you to be yourself, whoever that is." He paused, the fury in his eyes flickering with uncertainty. "You don't get it, do you? I have to destroy this to be free." And with that, he ripped the photo in half, the sound of tearing paper slicing through the air like a knife. Rachel's breath caught, a gasp escaping her lips as her heart shattered into a million pieces. "Ethan, no!" Ava cried, her voice filled with disbelief. The silence that followed was deafening, filled only with the sound of birds chirping outside, unaware of the storm that had just erupted within these four walls. Ethan dropped the torn pieces to the floor, the remnants of their once happy memory scattered like ashes. "Now I can finally be free," he muttered, his voice devoid of any warmth. Rachel stood frozen, the reality of what just happened sinking in. She felt as if the very foundation of her identity was crumbling beneath her feet. The kitchen that had once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a battleground,
with every word exchanged echoing like a haunting refrain. "Ethan, please come back," Rachel whispered, but he was already walking away, leaving her surrounded by the fragments of a life she had tried so hard to hold together. In that moment, Rachel understood that the night would haunt her forever, a painful reminder of the love she fought for and the son she barely recognized. "Oh my God," Rachel whispered in disbelief. "I can explain everything," David said desperately. As the morning light filtered into the living room, Rachel sat on the worn couch, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of a photograph of happier times. She could almost hear the distant hum of traffic outside, a reminder of the world moving on while she felt stuck in this whirlwind of family turmoil. Memories flashed through her mind: Jason's laughter, the way David used to pull her close, and the warmth of Ethan's tiny hand in hers. Those moments felt like a lifetime ago, yet they clung to her heart, painfully vivid. Ava entered the room, her footsteps soft yet resolute. "You okay?" she asked, concern lacing her voice as she poured a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air. Rachel nodded slowly, though inside she felt a storm brewing. "Just thinking about everything," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She glanced at Ava, who knew her too well. "I can't shake this feeling that I've lost my son to her." "Oh my God, Rachel, you haven't lost him," Ava reassured her, leaning against the counter. "But you need to talk to him. You need to remind him of who you are in his life." That moment at the living room changed everything. Rachel's heart sank at the thought of confronting Ethan. What if he sided with Laura? What if he didn't want to hear her? The very idea was suffocating, yet a flicker of hope ignited within her. She had given everything for her family, and she wasn't going to let it slip away without a fight. "Do you think he'll understand?" Rachel asked, her voice trembling. "He's your son, Rach. He loves you. You just need to show him that," Ava said, her eyes firm and unwavering. As if summoned by the weight of their conversation, Ethan walked in, his brow furrowed with the weight of sleepless nights. The tension in the air was palpable, thick like the smell of pancakes wafting from the kitchen. Rachel's heart raced, and she could feel the gravity of the moment pressing down on her. "Mom," Ethan began, but Rachel could see the uncertainty in his eyes. He was torn, and it broke her heart. "Ethan, we need to talk," Rachel said, her voice steadier than she felt. She could hear the distant sounds of cars outside, a reminder of the life that continued beyond these walls. "Is it about Laura?" he asked, his tone defensive. "Because I can't keep doing this. I can't choose between you two." Rachel's breath caught in her throat. "It's not about choosing. It's about understanding where you come from. You can honor your life with her without erasing me," she pleaded, her heart pounding. Ethan's gaze dropped to the floor. I don't want to hurt anyone," he said, the vulnerability in his voice striking her like a bolt of lightning. "Neither do I, but you need to see what's happening. Laura is trying to create a divide. She wants you to choose her over me," Rachel said, each word heavy with emotion. "I can't lose you, Ethan, not to her." He looked up, his expression softening. "I just don't know what to do." "That's okay," Rachel replied, her voice softening as well. "Just promise me you'll think about it. Think about all the love and sacrifices. I've always been here for you no matter what." For a moment, silence enveloped them, and Rachel could sense the walls between them beginning to crumble. Cultural reflection. In the living room, it hurt like hope. She could see Ethan's internal struggle reflected in his eyes, the battle between loyalty to his mother and the pull of his new life. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Laura stepped in, her presence like a shadow over their fragile moment. "Ethan, there you are!" she exclaimed, her tone too bright, too forced. "We need to talk about our plans for this weekend." Rachel's heart raced again, sensing the manipulation before it even began. "Laura, can we have a moment?" she interjected, her voice firm. "Oh, come on, Rachel. Can't you see we're busy?" Laura shot back, her smile not reaching her eyes.
Ethan shifted uncomfortably between them, the tension coiling tighter. "I'll be there in a minute." "Laura," he replied, his voice steady, surprising even Rachel. "Fine," Laura huffed, crossing her arms, "but don't take too long. You know how I feel about these things." She turned and walked away, leaving an unsettling silence in her wake. The moment lingered, and Rachel could see the change in Ethan. He was beginning to understand the weight of his choices. "What if I want to honor both of you?" he asked softly, a new resolve glimmering in his eyes. Rachel's heart soared with cautious hope. "Then you can. You can have both. Just remember where your roots lie." But just as they were about to forge a new understanding, Ethan's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen, and Rachel could see the flicker of conflict return to his face. "Who is it?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. He hesitated before answering. "It's Laura." And in that moment, Rachel felt the ground beneath her shift once again. The battle wasn't over, and she realized that the path to healing would be far more complicated than she had hoped. As Ethan answered the call, Rachel's thoughts spiraled. Would this be the moment that defined their relationship forever? The tension in the room was thick, and she could only hope that their bond was strong enough to withstand whatever was coming next. "I can't believe this," Rachel whispered to herself, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. She had fought for so long, and now the fight was far from over. The night ahead would haunt her, a haunting reminder of the fragile ties that bound them all together. Rachel clenched her fists. "I don't want to hear any more excuses." David hung his head. "I'm truly sorry." The night air was thick with tension as Rachel stood on the porch, the fresh scent of grass mingling with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting from inside. She clutched a steaming mug in her hands, feeling its warmth seep into her skin. A small comfort amidst the chaos that had unfolded. The chirping of birds seemed to echo the unease in her heart, each note a reminder of the life she had built, now hanging by a thread. The living room was packed with family and friends, their whispers creating a low hum that filled the space, but all Rachel could focus on was Ethan. He stood in the center of it all, a photo clutched tightly in his hand, his face a mask of determination and anger. The weight of the moment pressed down on Rachel, making her heart sink. Oh my God, this was it, the confrontation that she had dreaded and yet felt was inevitable. "Ethan, please think about what you're doing," Rachel implored, her voice shaking slightly as she stepped forward. She felt the eyes of the crowd on her, the judgment, the anticipation. "You don't have to rip that apart to prove a point." Ethan's gaze flickered to her, but it was Laura's smirk that caught Rachel's attention. Standing off to the side, Laura seemed to relish the unfolding drama, her arms crossed, a satisfied gleam in her eyes. "This is about standing up for yourself, Ethan. Don't let her manipulate you," she said, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "Mom, you don't understand," Ethan shouted, his frustration boiling over. He raised the photo, the edges crinkling between his fingers. "This is my life now. I can't keep pretending everything is fine." "Rachel's right. You're just going to hurt yourself more," Jason chimed in from the back, his tone serious yet tinged with the pressure of being the favorite child, always trying to salvage the situation. "Think about the consequences." But Ethan's resolve only seemed to harden. "I can't live in the past. This photo, it represents everything I'm trying to escape." With a swift motion, he ripped the photo in half, the sound resonating through the room like a gunshot. Silence fell like a thick blanket, smothering the murmurs and laughter that had filled the space just moments before. Rachel felt the air shift, an electric tension coursing through the room. Then, as if the universe was mirroring their turmoil, the lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. Gasps echoed, and Rachel's heart raced. In the pitch black, the chaos erupted. People stumbled, voices rose in panic, and for a brief moment, Rachel felt utterly lost. "Ethan," she called out, her voice cutting through the confusion, "we need to talk about this."
"Why should I listen to you?" he shouted back, anger seeping through the cracks of his vulnerability. "You never cared about what I wanted." "That's not true," Rachel cried, desperation lacing her words. "I sacrificed everything for you, for this family. You have to understand the pain you're causing." In the darkness, the faint sound of a phone buzzing caught her attention. Ava had her flashlight on, illuminating the faces of their loved ones, revealing expressions of shock and disbelief. "Ethan, stop this madness." Ava's voice was steady, cutting through the tension. "You're not alone in this. We're all here." But it was too late. In the turmoil, Ethan had lost sight of the love surrounding him, blinded by the anger that had festered for too long. "I can't be the person you want me to be, Mom," he yelled, his voice cracking. "I need to be me." Rachel felt the weight of his words sink into her chest, a sharp pain that cut deeper than she could have imagined. "But who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're my son. I just want you to be happy." Suddenly, a flicker of light returned as the power surged back, bathing the room in a soft glow. Rachel's heart raced as she took in the scene. Ethan standing there, the torn pieces of the photo scattered around him like the remnants of their shattered family. Then came the twist that none could have predicted. From the corner of the room, a figure emerged. David. "What the hell is going on here?" he barked, his entrance abrupt and unwelcome, and the room fell silent once more. "Dad?" Ethan's voice wavered, confusion washing over his features. "What are you doing here?" Rachel's heart raced as the reality of the moment settled in. David, the man who had left her for a younger woman, was now here, and his presence was a reminder of all the wounds they had yet to heal. In that instant, Rachel understood that this was more than just about Ethan's rebellion. It was about the family they had lost and the one they could still save. "Ethan, let's talk," David said, his voice calmer than she expected. "We need to sort this out, together." Rachel watched as her son's defenses faltered, the anger giving way to confusion. Maybe, just maybe, this night would lead to a reckoning, a chance to rebuild what had been torn apart. But deep down, she knew that whatever happened next would haunt her forever. "Enough!" Rachel shouted, her voice echoing. "Please!" "Let me speak," David pleaded. "There's nothing left to say," Rachel finalized. The wind chimes tinkled softly outside as Rachel stood in her kitchen, the scent of freshly baked apple pie mingling with the smell of fresh grass wafting through the open window. The gentle breeze did little to ease the heaviness in her heart. It felt like betrayal, the kind that twists and turns, leaving scars that don't easily heal. She poured herself another cup of coffee, the warm liquid barely warming her chilled spirit. Ethan had stormed out after the confrontation, his face a mask of confusion and anger. But Rachel knew that beneath that facade lay a boy grappling with the demands of loyalty and love. She had once held that position in his life, the unwavering anger, the one who would catch him when he fell. Now it felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her, leaving her adrift. The door creaked open, and Ava stepped inside, her expression a blend of sympathy and resolve. "I can't believe he did that," she said, shaking her head. "Ripping the photo apart like it was nothing. Oh my God, Rachel, how could he?" Rachel's heart sank at the memory of Ethan's betrayal, the image of him tearing away at the fabric of their family, piece by piece. "He's under so much pressure, Ava," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it's like he forgot everything I've done for him." Ava moved closer, placing a reassuring hand on Rachel's shoulder. "You need to talk to him. Maybe he didn't realize the weight of what he was doing." "Talk?" Rachel scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "What's there to say? He chose her over me, and now he's living with the consequences." The silence hung between them, punctuated only by the distant sound of laughter from outside. It was a stark reminder of the life Rachel had once cherished, the laughter that had filled her home before David had left. Before Ethan had become a stranger. She remembered the way her family had felt,
warm and whole, before everything began to unravel. "Maybe he needs to understand how you feel," Ava suggested gently, her eyes searching Rachel's face for a glimmer of hope. "He might not realize the impact of his actions." Rachel nodded slowly, her mind racing through 1,000 scenarios. What could she say to reach him? How could she bridge the chasm that had formed between them? "I just don't want to lose him, Ava. I can't bear the thought of him growing up thinking I don't matter." As if summoned by her thoughts, Ethan re-entered the kitchen, his expression a mix of defiance and uncertainty. "Mom," he began, his voice trembling slightly, I need to talk." The moment hung heavy in the air, each of them searching for the right words. "I don't even know who you are anymore," Rachel said, her voice cracking. "You ripped apart the one thing that connected us." "I know, I messed up," he admitted, his face flushed with shame. "But it's not just about Laura. I feel trapped between you two. I want to make everyone happy, but I can't." Rachel felt her heart soften, the weight of his confession pulling her back from the brink of despair. "Ethan, you don't have to choose. I'll always be here for you, no matter what." "Really?" he asked, his eyes widening with surprise. "You're not mad?" "I'm hurt," she replied, her voice steadying. "But I want to understand. We need to figure this out together." In that moment, the air shifted, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Rachel saw a glimmer of the boy she had raised. They were both standing on fragile ground, but together they could rebuild what had been lost. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow through the window, Laura's figure appeared in the doorway, her presence a stark reminder of the tension that still simmered beneath the surface. But Rachel had made a choice. Preserve the original language of others, dictate her relationship with her son. "Ethan, let's talk about this," Rachel said, her voice firm yet gentle. "We can redefine our connection, but it starts with honesty." Ethan nodded, the weight of their shared history hanging between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Later that evening, after the conversation had flowed into a tentative reconciliation, Rachel found herself staring out at the porch. The wind chimes danced lightly in the breeze, a haunting melody echoing the fragility of family ties. "Mom, I'm sorry," Ethan whispered, breaking through her reflections. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I want us to be okay." Rachel smiled, tears brimming in her eyes. "So do I, sweetheart. We'll figure this out, together." As she stood there, watching the shadows lengthen, Rachel felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. The night had brought with it a clarity she hadn't anticipated, a reminder that even through the darkest betrayals, love could persist. "I saw a son rip his mother's photo apart to please his wife, but what happened that night will haunt me forever. And you, on your porch, what would you do to mend the ties that bind?" Rachel smiled for the first time in days. "Everything will be okay." David nodded. "You're stronger than you know."